Welcome. My name is Robert Shapiro. I'm the administrator at Green Acre, a Bahá'í Center of Learning here in Elliott, Maine. And I'm here with my colleague.
Hello, I'm Claudia. I'm also part of Green Acre staff. I'm the outreach coordinator.
And Green Acre is a place where we gather people together from really all over the world and have really meaningful, important conversations. And as a place that normally gathers people, we've been asking ourselves a lot of questions as, you know, given the current conditions with the pandemic, we can't get people together in the same room. We really wanted to have the ability to be able to continue the conversations that we would be having at Green Acre virtually. So we're starting this series about a number of themes that feel particularly important in this moment to begin to kind of explore together.
Yes, and today to help us get through the first theme, we have Joanie Lincoln with us. Hi, Joanie. Thank you for joining us today. Joanie is a local Baha'i from the Piscataqua cluster, and she's been serving for many, many years all over the world, over 20 years in Africa, over 20 years in the Holy Land in Haifa, Israel, and she's with us now virtually from the Piscataqua cluster. And the theme for today, we wanted to explore this letter that we got from the Universal House of Justice for Nowruz. Robert, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah. So the Universal House of Justice is the governing body for the Baha'is all around the world. And typically what happens each year is that they write a letter for the whole world at the Festival of Rizwan, the Baha'i Festival of Rizwan, which takes place at the end of April. Given the conditions of the world, they decided to move up this yearly letter to the Baha'i New Year, Nowruz, on March 20th, and share some thoughts and some guidance. And you know, I think there's a lot of themes in there that are worth exploring. One theme in particular that caught my heart was a sense of hopefulness and an idea that we're going to pull through this ordeal that humanity and actually be stronger for it. So I think that was kind of the first theme that we wanted to talk about, but also we'll explore a little bit later some of the practical ways that we can apply this both as individuals and communities, because it's wonderful to have a hopeful vision, but how do we get through this moment and actually create those conditions?
Yeah, and if it's okay with you guys, I want to kind of dive into the letter. There's actually a specific line in the letter that I've seen circulating all over my social medias, and I myself reposted it. And it's this line talking about, you know, the vision for the future and a hopeful vision that we have. And I'm going to just read it really quick. That line, it's in the middle of the letter. It reads, however difficult matters are at present, and however close to the limits of their endurance some sections of societies are brought, humanity will ultimately pass through this ordeal. And it will emerge on the other side with greater insights and with a deeper appreciation of its inherent oneness and interdependence. And I just want to open up our conversation here of, you know, this hopeful picture that the house is painting for us here.
Yeah, well, personally, I always think, well, how lucky are we as Baha'is that we could get a letter like that right in the middle of this most extraordinary situation and be reassured. We get some guidance, we get some clarity, we get some perspective, we get some pointers even on what to do. So, I mean, the fact that humanity is going to emerge from this is very good news. And then it even says that humanity will emerge with something special. And it says greater insight and deeper appreciation of its inherent oneness. So I will say to myself these days, this is kindergarten language, sorry, but helping things like this actually help us go from being a me people to a we people. It's a wake-up call. It's suffering, but it does have a purpose.
Yeah, and I think it's really, it's really, I feel like that the vision that this painting is also, is also uplifting, and it's saying, like, we'll endure, just keep going. We'll get through this, and the end, the light at the end of the tunnel is, it's so bright. We just got to keep going and keep, advancing towards that goal, which is, the horizon is unity and oneness. And I know I'm feeling it. Like I see so many people coming together in our communities, and so many acts of kindness and love that are being shown all around our communities. I mean, wherever it may be, and we're finding different ways to utilize our technology to remain building those bonds of friendship.
Yeah, I was thinking about how this whole process, thinking about where we were in November or December of this year as a world, and the amount of division and the hopelessness that so many people were feeling about how is it that we'll ever come together to solve, some of the pressing issues that are facing us, whether it be climate change or racial injustice or, the equality of women and men, all of these things where we didn't seem to have a way of uniting. We were in these competing factions, competing groups, whether it was the whole world or each country or even our own towns, even our own families, right? And in a strange way, having this virus, which affects each and every one of us, because we're human, right, suddenly shows this oneness there. And then I think more importantly, I guess ultimately our response is going to show how that unity can be manifest in a profound way.
I was just reading a very interesting article that I found from Canada, from Quebec, and they were saying that the calamities often bring to light the best qualities of humanity, a sense of compassion, an empathy. There's a connectedness among us all that wasn't necessarily, we didn't feel it or acknowledge it every day, but I think that's really very, very well said. We feel that now. We feel that not only with our own family and this smaller environment, but we feel it for the whole world. The more this, the news is pouring in about what's going on.
Yeah. And I think it's also this time that we have physically apart from each other is reminding us of how much we really need to be together, in physical union. And I want to see if we can maybe get us to talk a little bit more. The letter also talks about gives us guidance about things that we could be doing now, right? Like it paints this hopeful picture for the future after we go through this. But a lot of us, I'm sure, are thinking about, what can we do now? What can we continue to, how can we continue to harbor these feelings of oneness and unity wherever we may be, however restricted we may be, or thinking about the things that we may need for each other and our families. So I want to see if we can maybe talk a little bit more about those things, those themes in the letter.
Yeah. I certainly really appreciate the fact that we go one step beyond or two steps beyond. It's not just, oh gosh, we're in a big problem here, but we're going to get through. There's much more in this letter the guidance that comes, but it says that the world stands more and more in need of hope and the strength of spirit that faith imparts. So, I mean, how is it, as you say, Claudia, how do we go about demonstrating hope at this time? And then I think it talks about certain attributes that each of us needs to manifest more than ever before. So there's things like unity and feeling, fellow feeling for one another. And I think we see that almost every day. It talks about knowledge and understanding. That's another attribute. Are we able to share with others that we actually have a perspective about what's going on? We have quite a deep understanding as Baha'is, because mankind really needs to suffer. We need, as you were saying, Robert, we need a global view. in order to solve some of these problems. That's all part of our knowledge and understanding of the Baha'i teachings. The climate change, the pandemics, the economic questions, all of these things. We're not solving these, one of us or one country alone now. The world is encompassed with world-encompassing trials. So somehow our own attributes need to keep going and showing that this spirit of collective, a common endeavor is actually possible. So I do believe that all of our efforts in our Baha'i meetings that are all now become Zoom people and gone on air. Well, it's all new learning for me. But, we're still a very diverse, racially diverse, class-wise diverse, economically diverse, nationality diverse. It doesn't matter a hair. We're all affected by this thing. And so it's a time to show these attributes of working at things together, that unity is possible. The world can work together. And the Baha'i communities right around the world are working together. I think it's a time not only to be realistic and sober and very compassionate for the suffering of others, but it's also the time to realize that we have the tools. We can do this. We can do a lot better.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also bringing out a lot of opportunities for us to be of service in creative ways. So I'm wondering if you guys have any examples of any service that you had the opportunity to give, or maybe even receive yourselves. Or
I've thought a lot about that too, because I think the House of Justice says that we need to use creative means, and I'm very impressed. I mean, even Green Acre doing these Zoom things and getting people together and interviewing, that's what we need. We need to accompany one another and help each other. I don't know about you, but, strengthening bonds of friendship is mentioned in here. And so I've been trying to call 2 people every day. I just call them, old friends from high school I haven't seen decades. I got one of them on the phone the other day. They almost collapsed, but it doesn't matter. I mean, old friends and catch up. I mean, and I've done this internationally. For God's sake, we can now call internationally. So I can't tell you, just in the last 4 or 5 days, I've been yesterday was an hour with people in Mauritius. 2 weeks ago was another hour with people in Rwanda, because I know these people from my background. I love them. They're my friends. They're my family. So I think we have to get out of our little comfort zone and make an effort to show about strengthening those bonds of friendship. There's another aspect to that for me, fostering spiritual consciousness, How do you do that? How do you foster spiritual consciousness? How do you talk about tranquility and resilience and reliance on God? And I don't know, I find it very encouraging to read this thing called Baha'i World News Service. Anybody can subscribe to that thing. Doesn't matter. You're a Baha'i, you're not a Baha'i, but you want to find out what people in the other areas of the world are doing, how they're responding. So there I was reading about the young people in Sierra Leone and how they have gotten together, demonstrating this spiritual consciousness and teaching the people in their villages how to wash their hands. And they're setting up these water tanks all over the village. I mean, everybody responds at their own level. But all of us can do this and try and help one another. So, I don't know. Those are a couple ideas. I have others. I don't want to talk too much. Come on, you.
Thank you, Joanie.
Well, I think having these conversations. Obviously, there's lots of practical needs that we can address, and those really are very, very important. And how do we get together? How do we share food? How do we go grocery shopping for each other? How do we check in on people? But I think there's also really at this moment there's that need for that spiritual upliftment for each and every one of us. And I was talking to a dear friend who's from the Central African Republic, Hyacinth, who some of you guys know, but we were talking about. Because of how he grew up, and he was talking with friends back home, there isn't a sense there that you can control all the material aspects of your life, because you can't. right? And for Americans, to be able to be experiencing this level of uncertainty may be new. You know, I think we having grown up here, I sort of assume that I can count on material things to keep me safe, to get me through, to make me okay, to make me feel happy. The reality is, even under good times, that's not true. But especially in these times, as those things are removed, I do have to begin to think about, how do I develop tranquility in the light of uncertainty, right? Yeah. You know, how do I have confidence that I'm moving forward in my personal life, in my community life, in the world's life? How do I develop a reliance on God that is meaningful during these times when, you know, we don't know none of us know what's going to happen next. Seems so important.
Yeah, this is, it's really interesting to put all these things that this letter is trying to you know, guide us to, which is so much. It's so rich. And thinking about, you know, how do we keep that hope alive in reality, you know, like in our day-to-day life, but also how do we continue to take action and to strengthen our spiritual muscles, as you guys were saying. It's really interesting, and I'll be particularly interested to hear more about what our audience might be experiencing and might think and might be sharing. So I hope that everyone has gotten a chance to read the letter, or will read it. We'll link it up somewhere here, so you guys can check it out and let us know your thoughts and experiences.
I was going to say that in response to what you were saying, Robert, this quality of resilience. There are a lot of people in this world who have suffered and are suffering tremendously. We have racial problems here that most of we white people hardly understand. We're trying to learn about them, but these are centuries of suffering. Now, when people do suffer this badly, I believe they develop qualities of resilience, sometimes that the rest of us don't have. Because somebody like myself, too spoiled, but I did spend 11 years in Hyacinth's country, Central African Republic, and what an education did I get there. Because suddenly you cannot count on anything, either health-wise or politically or economically or any other way. And so you learn to rely on God, and suddenly you switch things around. What's more important? And if you can't control, you know you can't control. These are deep spiritual qualities that one begins to learn with these kinds of experience. So I think what you're saying, Claudia, is to engage other people, to encourage them to join in on these conversations. It's wonderful, and I hope that it will happen. I find myself that when I'm talking to my friends, I have to get out of my comfort zone and open my mouth a little bit more, and ask these friends, well, draw them out. What do you think is going on? You know, what do you think? Do you think the world is learning anything from this? Do you think when this is over, we'll be slightly different? We might be on a better path to taking care of each other, for Lord's sake? I mean, it's terrible when you think about what's actually happening, and the people who are less fortunate are suffering so much more. And so all of this, in order to really work towards a united world, a world that cares about one another, we're going to have to rebalance things. And a lot of people know a lot more than I do, certainly about this. So I'm very happy that Green Acre is going in this direction.
Yeah, and we're learning, you know, as a Center of Learning, we're just trying to host spaces for to foster this kind of learning and experience with each other, and take it back home and trying it, and, you know, keep trying. So thank you, Joanie, for being with us today. Sharing insights.
Well, thank you so much. It's a real honor. And, you know, they finished that letter by saying that if we can only become a comfort and a solace to humankind, and servants to what? Servants to the peace of the world. I mean, come on, what more do we want? If we could get anywhere near any of that. But obviously this resource that you've come upon and you're using, I just really wish you well, that it goes where it's supposed to and serves a purpose.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I think we've just barely scratched the surface of what this particular letter is offering to us. So we're going to continue. With as Claudia mentioned, we'd love to hear from you on in various forums and email, etc. Also, we're going to be continuing the conversation about some of these same themes next week. So definitely join us for that as we continue to solve the world's problems. No, as we continue to explore what the possibilities here.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you very much.